Welcome to G's Backstage Pass. Today, my guest is Natasha Walstra. How you doing, Natasha?
I'm doing very well, G. How are you?
Great. Thank you for taking time to be on the show. So you're the VP of Sales for Forbes Books. You're a thought leader, and you're a storyteller. So who is Natasha?
According to my nephews, I'm actually TT. They love to go by
Pete.
TT for me, but yeah, no,
Okay.
I yes, storyteller for sure, but I actually rather like to tell other people's stories. Hence how I think I found myself in the publishing world.
Nice.
But I'm originally from California, the Bay Area, so actually from Palo Alto, sort of
Mm-hmm.
before Silicon Valley was Silicon Valley. It's changed quite a bit since then, but
Yes.
um, yeah, I'm from California. I've traveled quite a bit. I studied anthropology and geography. And when I graduated university, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to change the world and ended up, well, a little bit naively, I suppose, but I ended up in Argentina for some time. And so
Nice.
um, from there, found myself in 3D printing and then found myself here in publishing. So I've sort of uh, know a little bit of a lot.
So, I mean, you said you're from Silicon Valley before it was Silicon Valley. So, what was it like growing up, and how did that shape your life?
Definitely, yeah, yeah. I say that because obviously it's changed quite a bit now with all the tech as it is now. But the
Hmm.
my parents actually aren't from the United States. My dad's from Holland, and my mom is actually was born in Ukraine and then raised in Toronto. And my dad got his PhD in computer science and mathematics back in the early '80s, and so he ended up getting a job
Nice.
with Hewlett Packard, which
Right. Right.
brought them out to Palo Alto. So yeah, I've been from there. There wasn't that much going on at the time, 30 years ago. But it's even, I left for 10 years and I came back, and it feels like a city for sure. It's much more, very diverse group of people. You don't really find that many people who are actually from Palo Alto either. So
Right.
it was a fun bubble I grew up in, I will say. I mean, most of my friends, everyone was from everywhere too. And we were that kind of first younger generation being from there and growing up in that community. But it was great. It was a fun childhood.
Nice. So, how did you know this is what you want to do? And we're going to talk about your experiences in Argentina as well. Like, how
Mhm.
did that open your eyes and to different cultures and creativity, and how has this like kind of shaped to know exactly what you want to do?
Well, that's a work in progress for sure. I can't say I necessarily know what I want to
Right,
do.
right.
I was just saying the other day to myself, I'm not lost, but I don't know where I'm going. And, I think it's sort of an ongoing, evolving situation. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess what started I started it originally, and my parents like to joke between a wandering Jew and a flying Dutchman. No wonder both the kids love to travel so much. So I actually studied abroad my junior year in
Uh-huh.
France, in the south of France, which is, I believe that's you'll be heading that way soon.
Yes, we're headed to Nice very
I
soon.
mean, it's
Yes, yes,
beautiful there. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So I spent my junior year in Aix-en-Provence, and I actually
Mm-hmm.
had thought I would end up staying in my senior year in Paris, but I
Mm-hmm.
decided to go back to school in Central California at Cal Poly, where I finished my degree. And then from there, I was like, well, I know French, might as well try to learn Spanish. But I had actually kind of a full circle here. I almost forget about this at times, but it was a really good family friend of mine. Do you remember the Klutz books, like How to Juggle, How to Braid Your Hair, like these children's books? They were big back in the 90s, 90s
Okay.
kids, but it
Right.
was they got bought out by Scholastic, but they had a partner company out in Argentina. And so I'd met this guy, Rodolfo, who ran that publishing house. And so he
Mm-hmm.
said, if you wanted to come to Argentina, you're welcome to intern with us, for a month. And so I ended up working with him for several months. And then from there, got into some other stuff in Argentina because my plan was to actually just stay in Buenos Aires for 2 months and then travel around. But I ended up staying for nearly 6 years. So
Wow.
jumped from the publishing house to real estate to then a production company and film for several years and then back into real estate. So yeah, it was an interesting time. I think after year two, my parents were like, is she ever coming back?
Well, I think that's the thing with us creative people. Like, my background, as a lot of people know, I started out in radio. I thought I was going to do radio. Then I went in touring. I did touring, and now, media training. And I think for parents, it's like I think the generations are just different. I think
Yeah.
maybe I hate the term boomer because I'm almost at that age now. I'm Gen X. I'm Gen X. But,
Mhm.
it's like, okay, find a career and maybe you work with different companies within that career, but kind of stay in that one path. And I think with our generation, from our generation on, it's all about creativity and sharing your story and figuring out what moves you, it's like, okay, well, you try different things. And then what I think, because we have this with a lot of our band members, our clients with Rockstar, they're like, well, I've done so many things, how do I combine it all into? But what it equals is experience. I
Yeah.
mean, you lived in Argentina, you were immersed in a different culture, a different language, and all those skills and experiences you learn now add value to the creativity and everything, you know and I want to talk about, you work with authors
Mhm.
and you work with publishing. And I've had some publishers on the show. I've had some authors. I've had some publicists on the show. I'd love to know your thoughts on, working with authors and what are the different types of publishing? Because I hear a lot of
Yeah.
buzzwords, and I'm like, I'm trying to follow. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's transformed quite a bit actually because so Forbes Books, we're an independent publishing house. And there's three: traditional, which we all know of, the top five especially, and then
Hmm.
it's a hybrid independent like us, and then there's
Hmm.
self-publishing. So each house has a different you know opportunity, and what you're trying to do also depends on which direction makes the most sense.
Hmm.
I think where this fits very well with the authors that we work with, who are typically executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs, etc., it's that they typically like to be in full control of everything, right? And that's something
Hmm.
that in the traditional world you sort of tend to lose, because the publisher owns the copyright. They are the ones
Right.
that sort of want to change things, then they can, right? Whereas here, our authors own their IP, and so they
Hmm.
can repurpose it, serialize it, and do what they want with the book. At the end of the day, we just are here to really help facilitate the whole process and make sure that their end goals, the content, their target audience, all of this is in line with what their mission, movement, message is. So it's very dependent. And then of course it's similar to self-publishing in the sense that it is a fee for service, but we sort of help our authors depending on where they are in their journeys. Some people come to us with a manuscript, other
Right.
people come to us with an idea and don't know how to begin, where to go, the timing, all that sort of thing. So we help with uh, everyone and customize it based off of their needs.
Yeah, it's similar to the music business because, like, I've been in the music business for over 25 years. Back in the
Mhm.
day, it was record labels, signed the artists, they owned everything, owned their publishing, everything,
Mhm.
and paid. And it took a while for people to figure it out, but they paid the artists like a very, very small percentage, and the recoupment towards that was huge. But maybe just for the sake of conversation, maybe they got $1 an album, right? They're
Yeah.
selling this for $10 or $15, they get $1. As it evolved, artists and musicians realized, hey, I'm giving away my publishing, I'm giving away my masters and
Yeah.
everything. So what I love about with hybrid publishing is you get the best of both worlds. You get the machine from having a bigger name behind you, but yet you also get to maintain the creativity
Mhm.
and own the content. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's very much the same way actually. You think about it, and like how Spotify has transformed artists
Yes.
and makes it more accessible. The same with self-publishing. I mean, there's so many different opportunities, and Amazon has done such a wonderful job as well of just making it more
Hmm.
streamlined to publish a book. It's still a huge feat, of course, but I like that there are different ways of doing this now that can really help, those that maybe aren't, that are the beginning of their journey and don't
Right.
yet have the finances maybe to back either, hybrid or traditional, let's say. But this is something where it is more accessible, which for me brings me so much joy too, because what I love so much about this is it's not just about the book, right? It's about the end mission movement, whatever
Hmm.
it may be. And so, helping authors amplify their mission, their message is just very rewarding because it truly is, whether rational or not, our society does place such a high level of trust and credibility in authorship.
Right.
But it's, time and how do I do it? So having these programs now available to the masses is really exciting.
And hybrid versus self-publishing, if someone is out there like solo trying to do it all on their own, we've always found this in the music business especially, I'm sure it's the same in publishing. It's great. It's better to surround yourself with a team of people that have specific skills and like, okay, a publicist,
Yeah.
he, she, or they handles just the publicity aspect of it, editors and,
Hmm.
graphic designers and covers and all this stuff. So when you get that hybrid, which is really like a collaboration, right? I
Hmm.
mean, hybrid
Yeah.
is really more of a collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, looking at time being such a constraint of most of the authors that I work with,
Mm.
at we want to make sure that they're using the best use of their time. And so
Mm-hmm.
in some cases, it is pretty standard to use a ghostwriter. Not to say that you have to, but it's a way of making sure they are ghosts. It's and ultimately it's the author's voice. They're just lending their craft to them, right? Because a lot of our
Right.
authors may not actually be experts in writing per se. That's
Right.
really typically
Right.
it's not the case, right? And so let's capitalize on their time and make sure that everything is being done in the best way and that they're spending their time where it should be, and typically it's growing their business. So yeah, I think the collaboration between having the publicist, our PR
Mm-hmm.
team,
Mm-hmm.
marketing, and if you have one in house that's totally okay, but it all has to work together because it's not like if you build it they will come. You have to do book
A lot
promotion,
of work.
marketing, personal brand
Yes.
websites, all the additional
Yes.
content alongside it, right?
And the thing with ghostwriting, I think that maybe the term ghostwriting maybe has a negative connotation in the industry, but it's really no different than there's songwriters out there.
Mhm.
There's many well-known songwriters out there that have written the best songs ever written, and then an artist puts their voice to it. It's a
Yeah.
collaboration. It's without the words, just having the voice or without just having the words without the voice. So, and I'd love to talk about like we connected through LinkedIn. And
Mhm.
I've said this on several shows that my view on LinkedIn has changed in the last 6 months because I thought it was just, I need a job, I have a job, congratulations on the job. We're meeting so many fascinating, interesting people like yourself all over the planet
Mhm.
on LinkedIn. And for authors, what are some tips that they can use to build their brand on LinkedIn as well as social media? But I really like to focus on what your thoughts are on building your brand on LinkedIn.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful platform. It has changed quite a bit over the last year, especially like since we're all coming out of COVID and the lack of, conferences, speaking engagements, the in-person collaboration. People
Right.
are really finding their voice on LinkedIn. So it's very important to view it how it is now, not just as a job searching or, recruiting
Right.
tool. Um,
Right.
and alongside, even doing podcasts and such, you have to be, in order to stay relevant and be a thought leader, you have to consistently be putting out content. Does that
Right.
mean writing a book every year? Probably not, because that's a lot
Right.
of time.
Right. That's a lot.
So being able to talk about everything that, looking at your goals and what you're trying to share to the world or to whoever your target audience is specifically, LinkedIn is perfect for that. So follow the people that you're trying to go after, the companies that you want to speak to that you hope will read your content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the best thing, and actually I posted about this yesterday on LinkedIn, but the best thing
Mm-hmm.
that I learned, and this is really for those who aren't trying to post every single day, which has been an experiment I've done the last 4 weeks now, and it's been really fun. And I've continued doing it, but it's hard. It's especially,
Yeah.
naturally
Yeah.
an introvert, putting myself out there every day has been absolutely terrifying. But what I had done before, and it was sort of the idea of building credibility and building my platform and thought leadership, was actually really, actually, I created a whole strategy around it. It's called the Sinvergüenza, LinkedIn Sinvergüenza strategy, which means no shame. So when I was
Okay.
actually, it takes me back to Argentina, actually, because when I was
Yes.
trying to
Yes.
learn Spanish, I was really struggling with getting um, well, learning. I was too scared. I was worried about making mistakes. I thought I'd get laughed at. And so I really struggled to make any progress in the language. And then one day I was like, you know what? Screw it. F it. Sin vergüenza. No shame, no fear. I'm going to
No
throw that all
shame,
out.
no fear.
And I'm just going to start speaking. And so I started making a ton of mistakes. And then I started, actually understanding. And then like a few weeks later, I basically woke up one day. I was like, crap, I'm fluent, And so
Wow.
it was really
We
cool to like let go. And that was, once you're out of your comfort zone, it's when you really start to grow. And so when I came back from Argentina and I was trying to find a job, and people are like, does she even speak English? And so um, somehow landed in, yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge, but I somehow landed into sales. And as an
Yeah.
SDR, and again, naturally an introvert, I was really,
Mm.
having nightmares trying to think about like cold calls, 70 calls a day, smile and dial type of thing. And so I actually discovered LinkedIn then and using it as a way to not only hit my quota and my goals and such, but
Mhm.
build my network, build my credibility. It wasn't really about my personal brand at that point, but there's a lot of things in this whole strategy resonates and is relevant to authors as well, because most of the time there isn't that much time. And so I created a way to, help be in the know very quickly without having to be spending hours and hours of content creation and that sort of thing. And so really it's the simplest thing is literally just setting up Google Alerts. So you go
Yes.
to Google Alerts and then you put in, what you're talking about, who other thought leaders, other companies or other books, authors, whatever it is that your target, whoever you're trying to reach, right? And then put that in your Google Alerts, and every morning you get notification for where they were in the digital world, right? It wasn't news,
Mm.
media, TV, anything.
Yeah.
And then that's the way to start building the relationships or tagging them and newsjacking, as David Scott Murin says. So like there's a lot of things that can be done with helping build your platform on LinkedIn or Twitter, or wherever your audience consumes media, right? But it's
Mhm.
a really great way to just sort of keep it light and easy versus having to do sort of an everyday, let me share my whole thoughts and world to you. It's just a little bit of a simpler way when time is a constraint, of course.
Yeah, I think as business owners, as authors, as coaches, creative entrepreneurs, we can get too focused on it has to be perfect. I need the perfect. Like Sandy's always on me because my grammar, spelling. I type the way I talk, and
Mhm.
it's never in grammatical stuff, right? And it's funny, but I can relate to what you're saying about learning a new language because, like, we're moving over to Nice. She's fluent in French. I don't
Mhm.
know any French, and I am like at this point, and I'm you talked about being an introvert. I'm an extrovert Gemini. I have no problem talking to people, but
Mhm.
there's still kind of that fear of, okay, I want to go out and order a cup of coffee, and what if I screw it up? But I really can relate to what you're saying about, I
Yeah.
think, and this relates to an author who's never put out a book before
Mhm.
and maybe sitting on the idea and going, well, what if I don't do it right? What if it doesn't sell? What if it doesn't look right? What if, and there is power in just us deciding to take a chance and do it and learn along the way. And then by the repetition of doing it, before you know it, like you said, you're fluent in
Yeah.
Spanish. So I'm hoping in, I don't know, 3 or 4 months or something, I can say I'm fluent in French. I doubt it because I'm trying to watch French movies and understand what they're saying. But and I love what you said about being on podcasts. And I think
Mhm.
authors and anybody who's promoting their business may kind of I mean, everyone understands that there's podcasts out there, but this is also a chance to continue the story or bring people in about the story of your book, your story of
Exactly.
why you wrote the book. And podcasts really have replaced like talk radio.
Mhm.
And what's great about podcasts is people anywhere can listen to them anywhere on the world. You can pause, you can share, you can. So I think that if in the marketing strategy, people really started focusing on being a guest on podcasts. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are on using that to market your book as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, because as I mentioned too, you have to constantly be creating content, and podcast is content that you can repurpose. You can share
Hmm.
it on your media channels as well, bring in other folks that you've been wanting to connect with and drive that sort of relationship driven content as well, of course. I think the other thing with podcasts too, and just overall in general, trying to build that trust, at the end
Hmm.
of the day, we want to be positioning you as mission-driven thought leader with something to teach versus operator of a business with something to sell, right? So if I keep hearing from
Right.
authors business, their website, their organization, whatever that may be, I'm thinking I'm being sold to, marketed to, my guard is up, right? Whereas if I'm
Right.
getting to know G, then I know that my guard is down, we're getting to actually meet each other authentically, right? And so
Yeah.
podcast is just a
True.
wonderful
True.
way of doing that so that you can really truly get to know people and share your stories. And then ultimately, yes, it's about probably driving book sales, but really it's about getting them to your personal brand website, for example, with more content, more information, to then they're going to
Right.
want to get their book, of course. But I think that's something, a really great tool for authors to just get their message out there, and it will ultimately, regardless, get them to buy their book, I'd say.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just in the last, I mean, before pandemic, everything was in studio, just like with touring, everything was in concert. And then the pandemic, when, it happened, I think it really just like launched even faster than it probably naturally would have, the podcast, because now you can sit in your home studio, you can talk to anybody anywhere on the planet. You can record it relatively, like back in my day, and and you worked in TV, so you know what I'm talking about as well. You had to rent a studio. You needed to have like all this proper equipment, a
Soundproofing, oh
producer,
my gosh, yeah.
soundproofing, everything, just to go do like a 3-minute radio interview was a challenge, right? You had to go
Yeah.
physically into the studio. So now with all the equipment we have, and I think authors may want to think about that. Like, you just go be a guest on shows and talk about why you wrote your book, or what the USP, what makes you unique, what
Mhm.
stands out. So, and I'd love to know, like, what are some qualities that you look for when you're working with a client, or you're working with like an author to promote?
I mean, I think passionate is really
Mm-hmm.
important because,
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned too, it's not like if you build it, they will come. You have to be just as involved and ready to spend time with it, even though, of course, we do in the hybrid world, especially, we help with a lot of the process. It's not just going to sell itself. And we level set, it's very hard, regardless of the direction you go, whether traditional, hybrid, or self, you're not going to make money off of book sales per se. It's not impossible, but that's
Right.
not where you're going to see that ROI per se, right?
Right.
Especially,
Right.
um, you know, the way that we really look at this is for business development, business growth, amplifying your mission, your movement.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, in order to really get that out there, you have to be mindful of your LinkedIn, of Twitter, of podcasts, and really getting your message out there, because otherwise it'll just sit there, right? And so,
Right. Right.
it is, I want people that aren't just doing this as like a legacy ego piece, really. And typically, if I have an author that comes to me and they're wanting to do, an autobiography or memoir, I will try to steer them away, maybe, and say, well, first, why should I trust you, right? Let's position
Right.
you as the thought leader, as the authority that you are.
Right.
And so let's talk about that first. And then if you want to do a memoir down the road, that's okay. But I think, having those that see the value of how a book can be leveraged for a bigger end goal, that's what I like to find, because it isn't just, again, about that book. It's about, like, when I talk with someone before I even get into the book content or what they're thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what are
Mm-hmm.
your goals, both personally and professionally, for the next 2, 5, 10 years, and how could a book align with that, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Right. It's part of the marketing. I mean, yes, there are people that do make money with sales only from books, and have the best selling and all that. But if you look at it as, it was just like, back in and back to music again, back in the day, MTV, when MTV came out, the music video is what sold
Yeah.
your album, and sold your concert. Nobody really made, aside from Madonna when she got banned and then released a video that you had to buy, right? Nobody really made physical money off the music videos. But every
Mhm.
time the music video was played, every time it was in rotation, that drove people to buy the physical copy. That
Mhm.
drove people to come to the concert. And I miss
Yeah.
MTV. I
I know.
had,
I'm thinking of all the hours I sat watching
right.
MTV videos when I was
And
a
all the
kid.
VJs, they had like
Yeah.
personalities. I know most of those guys, like Matt Pinfield and Kennedy and that. And you tuned in because, well, we're talking about, we were talking off camera about being an introvert and storytelling. But one thing about MTV that was so great is that the show was the personality. You
Hmm.
tuned in for Carson Daly. You tuned in for Matt Pinfield. Matt Pinfield, 120 Minutes, launched so many rock bands. I mean, there are
Yeah.
at least 100 rock bands that he is responsible for launching on a Sunday night show at midnight. I know we're going back into MTV days, but it
Yeah.
was so powerful then, but it was all part of the marketing. So if you know,
Yeah.
look at the book is a very credible piece of building the marketing puzzle, right?
Yeah.
What are your
Yeah.
thoughts
I mean,
on that?
it's about like visibility, right? That's
Yes,
why
yes,
being everywhere and, having it like on LinkedIn and doing on the podcast and such. I mean, it's really about visibility, and it opens doors, right?
yes.
I mean, think of like one of our larger industries that we work with under our Advantage imprint. We have two different lines on our uh, over here, but
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest industries is actually in dental and orthodontists. And if you think about it, it's about differentiating themselves from their neighbor or their competitor next door.
Right.
And so even just seeing, like, if I'm Googling, I'm a new patient, or I'm looking between two different doctors and I see this one published a book, I'll probably go with that person.
Right, the
It
credibility. Yeah, this one published
is,
a book,
yeah.
so
Right.
they must know more than the one who didn't publish it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But like if you think about it too, like there's opportunities to,
Mhm.
have your book at you do the airport bookstores. And
Yes.
that's 100% about visibility. It's not like you get
Yes.
too many book sales from that. You'll get a spike in Amazon because people take a picture and then buy it, Audible on
Right,
on
right.
Amazon. But someone will see that. I'm like, oh gosh, like that would be we're doing an event on this next month. I'd love for them to be a speaker. Right. And so we'll have people
Yes.
that continuously have their books at the airports just because of that visibility. Hmm.
Right. That's so true. I mean, an airport is a great example. You've got millions of people flying, and it's everybody from the CEO to the assistant, and they see a book on there, and then they read an article. This is where the publicist comes in.
Hmm.
Then they read an article online about this author being this, thought leader or expertise in this area. And then, and that's really what it's all about is the visibility of getting your name, your brand, your image out there. And so this is Backstage Pass, and this is Rockstar, and this is a signature question. So, Natasha, who is your favorite rock star?
Can I say my favorite rock star and my
As
favorite
many as you
rock
want.
band as well?
Rock band, as whatever you want. Yeah, it's open.
All right, so rock band, and this is going to probably be an unpopular opinion, maybe, but I love Dashboard Confessional,
Yes,
and
yes, yes,
they released a new album 6 months ago or so, and it reminds me of my favorite album from 2002 when I was like in
yes.
my emo years, and I can't stop listening to it. It's just helped me through a lot of tough times over the last few
Mm-hmm.
months. So
Mm-hmm.
it's taken me back. So it's a bit more on the nostalgic side. And I actually ended up seeing them here in Charleston back in March, which was really fun. And
Oh,
Jimmy Eat World
cool,
too.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done shows with those guys. I never worked with them directly, but I've done shows where they're on the bill and
Okay.
nice guys, really nice guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. But I'd say my favorite rock star is probably Robert Plant.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And especially him with and Alison Cross, like that, they're so good together too. I just like the combination. I just like I melt.
Boy, talk about taking two completely different
Hmm.
genres. This is where like the real, like what we talk about the X factor. This is where the real talent comes in. Because Alison Krauss, anybody, I lived in Nashville for a while, and
Oh
anybody
well.
who knows anybody in the music scene knows Allison and knows people that work with her, and just an incredible voice in the bluegrass world, right?
Yes.
Then you got
Yes.
Robert Plant, this like rock star god in this world, and you put it together and it's just, oh, that's one of the best collaborations. Yeah,
It really
yeah.
is. He live. I actually saw him in Buenos Aires at a
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I was like mesmerized.
Yeah,
That was kind of my first introduction almost to it. My parents always listened to Led Zeppelin, and then afterwards like Robert
yeah,
Plant.
yeah.
But hearing him live and being there, I like it was amazing. My mind was blown.
And one person like that, like everybody says that it's either Elvis or the Beatles, everything comes out of that, but I think Zeppelin is the third one there, Elvis, Beatles, Zeppelin, because I know so many musicians that they only picked up a guitar because of Zeppelin.
Because of them, yeah, yeah.
And like, songs that you hear, what, I don't know how old we are, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know, it's 40 years ago, but you still hear them today, and it's like, oh my god, it brings you back.
It brings you back. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I wish I wasn't so musically challenged. I can't sing or play any instrument if my life depended on it, but I do love music. So that's a great question.
Thanks. So, Natasha, how can people work with you? What's the best way to reach out to you and give us all your socials and everything?
Yeah, definitely. I think LinkedIn is probably the best way.
Yep.
I've
Yep.
been, as I mentioned, sort of doing this experiment of posting quite frequently, but I work with a lot of people, not just authors, maybe they're at the beginning stages of wanting to, but want to build out their personal brand. And,
Mm-hmm.
I work with, that have a LinkedIn, this Invidigonza strategy that I can help people work through that. And then also, of course, when it comes to publishing, if you are curious to learn more about the Forbes Books program, because it also, of course, does lend to becoming almost like a Forbes contributor as well and get to leverage their platform. And so it's another
Right.
opportunity of that sort of credibility by association, right? It's a unique invite only opportunity, but it is a really great program. So really, it's thought leadership, personal branding. If you want to publish your book and don't want to know the differences between all of them, I'm happy to share all the knowledge behind that. So LinkedIn would be the best way.
LinkedIn's the best way. Yes. Well, thank you, Natasha, for taking time today. I learned so much. This has been awesome. And yeah, thanks for taking time.
Thank you, G. I really appreciate it. This is awesome.
So, to learn more and connect with Natasha, connect with her over on LinkedIn at Natasha Walstra. All right. It's
Awesome.
great talking to you. Thank you
You
so much.
too.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
So thank you guys for tuning in. This is the last episode of season one. As I said, we're moving to Nice, and then we're going to continue season two over there. And I'm really excited because I have to learn French, and I don't know anything about French, but this is going to be an experience. So you can
Yeah.
connect with us on LinkedIn as well and follow those adventures. So until next time, cheers. See you, Natasha. Cheers.
Bye. See you.